welcome everybody. It's 2 o'clock, so we'll get started right on time. First and foremost, most important question, can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, thumbs up in the back rows? Okay. All right. Huge thank you to Laura and to the Springs for inviting us here today. My name is Mike Bomar. I am the Chief Economic Strategy Officer at the Port of Vancouver. Show of hands quickly, who knows that Vancouver has a port? Okay. I do a lot of elementary school presentations and people are like, what are you talking about? You know, what is this? So my role, I have the opportunity of being the sponsor for our Terminal 1 waterfront project. That means I lead a team of both port employees and consultants on building out our 10 acres of the waterfront. We'll talk a lot more about that today. I am going to leave you with some additional information if you want to get connected with the port more broadly as well at the end of this, and I have cards as well if you're interested. I would just note the Port of Vancouver is Washington State's third oldest and third largest port. We were formed in 1912. So we've been around a while. I think 100 and looks, I guess, our 114th year this year. Anybody older than 114 in this room? No? Okay. All right. So the port's been around as long as everybody here. So a little bit, is everybody familiar with the term when I say Terminal 1? You probably know better than this, but a lot of people actually confuse the entire Vancouver waterfront as port property. So depending on how nice they're being, I correct them or I don't correct them. But really this side of the waterfront, the Columbia Waterfront LLC's portion of the waterfront, really set the stage for us to be successful. So a huge shout out to the Vision, Barry and Graymore and team who helped build that out. And it really kind of, for those investing millions of dollars in our waterfront, showed proof of concept that this really could work, and it's been a jewel. And so this place in particular is an amazing jewel. I've seen presentations on it first time in the building, but you all live in an amazing place here. So kudos to the Springs for a job well done. The Vancouver waterfront, it actually has a long history and time immemorial of being an important place of trading for indigenous peoples long before European settlement here. But so I'll kind of fast forward a little bit into when the Hudson's Bay Company came. This area, this location was important. It actually was a ferry terminal before, in 1917, the Interstate 5 bridge was built. So the Terminal 1 site, even before it was port property, was very important. In the early 20th century, around 1912, railroads were actually starting to buy up a lot of the properties along the river, and the Washington state legislature formed the Public Port Authorities Act to allow for public ownership to provide continued access and to not result in the monopolization of our rivers and waterfront. So it's really about keeping public access and providing economic benefit to our communities. So in the early 1900s, around World War I, it was actually a wooden shipbuilding site for World War I vessels. And so it was the standard for shipyards. If you go down to the AC Marriott Hotel, you actually see a display that has a lot more detail on the standard for shipyards. Prior to that, it was lumber and logging. And there was one of the first earlier sites that had rail access in Clark County. Then in the mid-50s, actually I fast forwarded through the most important part, the birthplace of the Port of Vancouver in 1912, this is where it all started. So we had the opportunity to sell this site. The port typically doesn't do commercial development, but our commissioners in 2015 really decided that this was a special place for the port, and we wanted to bring that access, the affordability, and the information about the river economy to the community through this site. So in the early 1920s, did anybody ever go to Warehouse 23? Do you remember that? Was the old Red Lion Hotel?
Oh,
yeah. So Mark Mathias, the owner of Beaches, built out Warehouse 23. That was an homage to our original warehouse in 1923 that was there, and we did a lot of, it was actually an active dock, so we offloaded lumber, things like we imported pineapples from Hawaii. It was the prune export capital of the world at one point, so we keep things moving at the Port of Vancouver. But you think Fruit Valley, Prune Hill, and Camas, all those are named after a very thriving in the late 1800s prune industry here, and that continued into the early 1900s. So it was a working dock for many years, and in the 50s it closed down and became the Thunderbird Hotel originally, and then the Red Lion Hotel on this site. More recently, so this is from our master plan in 2015, so 11 years ago now. Our commission charged staff with developing a master plan, really with some key things in mind. One was access to the waterfront, so making sure people could really access and enjoy Vancouver's waterfront. affordability. They wanted it not to be out of price range for many people in Vancouver, so they wanted something affordable. And they also wanted the opportunity to connect people with the port and the river economy. Our actual port terminals are about 4 miles to the west, and a lot of people don't know that we have a port. And so it's a great opportunity to talk about the great things that we do, that our longshore labor do, and how the river economy helps support jobs and livelihoods in Southwest Washington and really throughout the entire country all the way back to Chicago. So kind of just a general overview if you're not familiar. So we are probably right around here, this area here. Currently under construction is the Lot 1, that's the 440 West apartments, and those will be finished this spring. We have one large building that's we call the Zoom Info building. That's 385,000 square feet of office and ground floor retail. Stay tuned this month or next. You should hear some good news going on there about new tenants and new opportunities, new restaurants, things like that will be announced this year at that site. So it should be even more interesting than it already is. The first building that we built was the AC by Marriott Hotel at the Vancouver waterfront. So y'all have Ondas restaurant there as well. But that has been a great partner, and they were one of our first investors and were willing to partner with us. So that's been a great success there. Down here is Rotary Way. I know Karen Ford is here. She's a Rotary member in our club. The Rotary Foundation actually donated $500,000 as part of their centennial anniversary, so 100 years of Rotary. Many of those years have been at the site, meeting at that site. It's a great historical walkway if you haven't been down there, and a lot of really cool elements. And that was we got funding from the state legislature as well, and about $7.6 million total invested to make that. Did anybody remember it was just like a concrete hole there? Okay, yeah, so hopefully it's better, a little more inviting space there, but it also a great opportunity to educate people not from Vancouver, or if you just want to go learn more about your community, it's a great place to go. A lot of good information there. And then Lot 5 and 6 next to the hotel actually is kind of on hold right now. There's this little bridge project that they're working on. And so we're waiting to get a little more certainty on what's going to happen with the I-5 bridge before we move forward with that site. And then I'll spend a lot of time today talking about public market. So I'm not going to get too wonky on these. If you want these, I can certainly send them to Laura and get you information. But over $500 million invested just in the 10-acre site there. And it's going to support about 3,000 jobs on the site as well too. So huge economic driver. It also creates a lot of tax revenue and offsets some of the other general taxes that people have to pay with the investments made at the site. So it's been a huge success from that point, and a lot of private investment as well as port and other public investment at the site. So in 2025, this is my first presentation in 2026. So some of these, I'll give you the updated version, but some of the language might be a little bit dated. But you can see in this picture, and this was in the title slide as well, we completed the bulkhead wall. So we basically took all that soil, made it seismically stable, and created a large bulkhead wall to keep any of the sediment or sliding going into the river. That was a big project. But that actually is not part of the dock itself, so I'll come back to that in a little bit as well too. So this time last year, that's about what it looked like. This is a rendering of the public market. One of the big things we're doing this year is advancing from 30% to 60% design for the public market space. So that'll include a lot more detail, and we'll be engaging and trying to make sure that we get the elements as best we can for that. But this is actually, it was originally inspired by the original warehouse that was there from 1923. But if you've been to Wenatchee, it's very similar in look to what the Pybus market looks like in Wenatchee. And functionally, it's similar to like a Pike's Place in Seattle, if you've been to that. So I wanted to give you a few updates. This is as of December, so it's about halfway complete for our dock replacement project. So a lot of people ask, why is it taking so long to get the public market in place? We only are able to work through a few months a year for the in-water work window to help protect the fish habitat in the area. And so that's why it takes about 3 years for us to get through the cycle of rebuilding the dock. Our first was the deconstruction, and now we're replacing over 1,100 old creosote piles that were there from 1917 with 250 steel piles. So it creates better fish habitat underneath the dock and much more structurally sound and environmentally friendly as well. Probably seen this. The pile work is about 65% complete. Hopefully you haven't heard too much impact hammering here. It is during specific hours, so trying not to be too disruptive. Certainly has been a challenge with the hotel being adjacent, but we are working really hard to make sure that the piles, again, for seismic reasons, it's a very strong dock. And again, there's about 250 piles that we're placing in there, and that should be done by the end of this month. There's also a bubble curtain. The little yellow wrap or kind of line that you see around is actually shooting bubbles and discouraging any kind of fish and wildlife from coming into the construction zone. So it's a habitat protective measure. So right now you'll also see concrete work happening, and actually I think this is completed at this point, but it's just above where that bulkhead wall that I showed. The dock will actually rest on this new piece, not on the bulkhead wall. So the retainment wall is separate structure from the dock itself. So you see a lot of different temporary platforms being put to put the work in place. Some of it's done from land side. They also have barges out that are doing work from the water side as well too. And they started from the upstream end, so closest to the I-5 bridge, and are working back toward the hotel.
How far down do the pilings have to go?
That's a good question. They go down to bedrock, which is different in the different areas there. So I don't know the exact length, but it varies by the piles. But they are the original ones, and the ones that the I-5 bridge are built on are actually in sand. These ones are actually put into bedrock. So. And you can see specifically, if you go down there, you'll see that's a 100-foot mark, and you can see how far they are down when they're set. So if you went down to the upstream end of the dock, you can see specifically how far down they are before they hit bedrock. So again, our market design, the picture on the lower left is actually Pybus Market in Wenatchee, and that is our design. Again, is not after that, but it's after our original warehouse, which looks very similar to this. So it's very similar in size and also very similar in design. And it's a great way to kind of get a sense of what our market will look like. So it is a year-round market. It's meant to complement a farmer's market, not replace or relocate a farmer's market. So our goal is to work very closely with the Vancouver farmer's market and make sure that we're complementary there and help support them in any way that we can. Entertainment and educational programming space, so working with school entertainment groups like Vancouver Symphony and others to make sure that we have a fun arts and cultural space. So outside of just the shopping element, it's meant to be a fun draw for the community as well. Fresh vegetables, meats, flowers as well too. It really is about helping to create, we have kind of some food desert issues in Vancouver, and this is a great way to provide more opportunities for fresh fruit and vegetables for our residents. This is lot one. It actually last month I wouldn't have said this, but now it's actually starting to look like this. So these are the new apartments that are coming up just diagonal from the AC Marriott Hotel. I believe there's about 130 units in there with ground floor retail as well. And then this is just some more pictures. Again, it doesn't look like this anymore, but you can kind of see the corridor with the Zoom Info building on the right, AC Marriott on the left. This year really is going to be an awesome year for Terminal 1 as it's going to start to be more vibrant. A lot of employees working down there, folks starting to move into the apartments. Right now, kind of the activity zone ends when you get around 13 Coins area or so, and you'll see that change kind of as the flow and the number of people start moving through that site. So I mostly wanted to say enough controversial things to get good questions here, and hopefully that you have some, but I'd love to have a conversation. Yes, sir.
You're talking about a lot of development and a lot of folks coming in to work and live. What's the strategy that goes along to accommodate the parking for both those that are going to be living and working in the area, as well as the folks that are going to be coming to the market in the future? Where are they going to park?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'll repeat the questions. The question was, how are we handling parking for the site with all these thousands of people coming in and living and working here? The Zoom Info building actually has 1,500 parking spaces inside the Zoom Info building, so they can handle quite a bit, and they're way under capacity at the moment. So in the short term, there's a lot of public parking there, as well as parking for those folks who are working in that building on site. Additionally, the new Lot 1 has enough parking in the building itself for handling that. The public market, we're actually coordinating right now with the I-5 bridge and trying to figure out exactly where it's going to go. But there was that Lot 5-6 area, which will have, if I can go that master plan here.
Yeah.
This, in the lower right, there's LPC Lot 5 and Lot 6. Somewhere in there will be parking for both ADA parking and larger amount of parking spaces for the public market permanent, and they'll be temporary while the I-5 bridge is being constructed. So, is there a follow-up to that one?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
The logistics flow for the support the market, the ingress, egress, and the relates to the folks that are working in the market. What is the traffic flow going to look like through that intersection?
Yeah, great question. So the question was ingress, egress. If you're not a civil engineer, I can, how are we going to get in? How are we going to get out? Can everybody hear me okay if I step away from the microphone? You guys still hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this area, Daniels Way Plaza, will be the last area that we develop. Right in this area, there'll actually be like a shared ride share drop-off area, and there will likely be another road that cuts through this area here as well too. So you'll have parking with pedestrian access across. Temporary, probably the next 5 years, you'll have parking here temporary as well too. But then you'll also have kind of a roundabout set up in a circular system through here to get in and out of the market area.
But the 1,500 lots are in the Zoom building?
They're in this area.
Okay.
Yep. Yes.
Are there plans for a heliport on one of these buildings?
I hope so. I haven't heard. So the question was, are there plans for a heliport for one of these buildings?
Or emergencies or whatever?
Yeah, I'm not. I should say. I want to say no, but then also I feel like at the Zoom Info building they actually do have an area where a helicopter can land in an emergency. So don't hold me to that, but I think there is one in the Zoom Info building. But it's certainly something we can consider for Lot 5 and 6 once that whole area gets built out. Good comment. Go this way and then up here. Yeah.
On the other side of the question of the heliport, are there any talks about sea transfers coming in?
Yes, great question. So the question was, are there any talks about C-Tran routes coming into the waterfront? So a couple things I'll point out. Some of them are undecided yet, but I can tell you a few things that are more certain. So everybody still hear me?
Yeah.
All right. So there'll be likely the BRT line as they complete this next phase, which is the Highway 99 section for bus rapid transit. We'll have a waterfront loop route. So somewhere in this area here, there will be a bus rapid transit stop as part of that next phase of expansion for bus rapid transit. Additionally, they're talking about, not certain yet, talking about a waterfront station that would be right up in here for light rail if light rail is to come across. If anything changes on transit, there will certainly be some type of higher capacity transit access right in this area here. Yes, sir.
Every once in a while, usually at night, there is an extraordinary odor that appears to come from the west. Many of us notice it, and I'm wondering if you have any idea of what the origin is of that extraordinary smell, and if it's recognized, what's going to be done to bring it down to a less obnoxious level.
Yeah, that's interesting. I don't know specifically what you're referring to, so I can make some guesses, I guess. And then certainly you can text me late at night and I'll run down here and smell it. I'm kidding. So you have an asphalt plant. You have Albina asphalt that is just to the west of, the kind of northwest of us here. That is not port property. I'm not sure if they have something that creates odors in later evening hours or not. The only other thing I can think of then across where the train Amtrak station is, and then across you have Great Western Malting operating. So if it's a malty smell, it may be a wind from the malt. I like that smell, but that could be it as well too. But I would guess probably most likely Albina asphalt. There's some process that they're doing just to the northwest. So certainly I will let our facilities team know that and see if they can get a sense and we can follow up on that.
It was pretty strong last night.
And it
This
smells
morning.
like methane to me.
Yes.
Methane?
It smells like gas.
An oily gas.
I don't, anybody here work for Albina Asphalt? I don't want to throw them under the bus, but I will have our team take a look at it and see if they can identify what it is. So we'll go here, here, and then here. Yeah.
What about ferry service and cruise ships?
Great question, thank you. I should have covered that. At the very bottom here, it says River Cruises. So we are in preliminary conversations with River Cruises. We used to have American Queen here. They actually went out of business, but American Cruise Lines, ACL, has taken up a lot of that on the river cruise traffic. I know Viking has also expressed some interest in river cruises. Not to get too specific on anything, but they're smaller. They're about 300 feet or less vessels, but we are accommodating that. We also have an EPA Clean Ports grant to put in shore power, so they won't be idling with diesel and that kind of stuff. They'll be required to plug in when they come to the site. So we are fully anticipating there'll be river cruise, and our dock is set up to accommodate that for that kind of roughly 300 foot, not your big, Carnival cruise type river cruise. Second part of your question, sorry.
Ferry service?
Ferry service, yeah, I'm tracking like the Frog Ferry group that's going, and for like commuter ferry or from like down here to Portland, I would envision at some point they'll have something like that. There's been some big advances in the particularly low wake electric ferries, and so we're monitoring that at this point, and certainly would be welcome to accommodating that. I think some of the bigger challenges for commuter ferries is mostly parking, so we talked about some of the challenges already with parking down here. If you're having like a park and ride style ferry, that could be a challenge. Good question. Okay, so it was over here and then here. Yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to add that the odor that we're talking about is petrochemical.
Okay.
So just for you to know.
Asphalt.
I'm gonna guess it's albina asphalt, but again, I don't want to get sued for saying that, so I will ask our facilities team to see if they can figure that out. Yes.
Yeah, the $1 million question, there's a dotted line going across called a bridge. Everybody, I don't know the final answer, but has something been approved? Is there one of them that's gonna go? Is there gonna be a cost estimate that's gonna come out? And what is it gonna do while it's being constructed in terms of the off-ramps and things into here?
Yeah. I'm happy to pivot a little bit. The question was about the I-5 bridge, the million or $10 billion question, or however you want to phrase it. So I'll answer in a few. The next big decision is supposed to be on January 16th. That's when the Coast Guard will have a determination on whether it can be a fixed span at 116 feet of clearance over the water, or if they'll need to do a lift span, which is 178 feet of clearance. So that will have a big impact on the schedule and the kind of form of what the bridge is going to look like. If they move forward with a fixed span, shortly after that, you would get a what's called the cost estimate validation process update, and that'll give you a more updated version of what the cost is for the project. It's probably not going down, so it is escalated quite a bit, as all transportation projects have. Then they'll have to make a kind of big decisions around scoping and what they do to kind of bring it back down into what they have approved already, which is $1 billion from Washington, $1 billion from Oregon. They have a couple billion in federal grants already secured as well too. They have some big transit ones that are hanging out, so that'll be kind of the third, after the next cost estimate, the third big thing this year will be the transit piece. They have $1 billion grant that they'll be applying for in the fall. So formal decisions will be a Coast Guard determination, which should happen this month. Don't hold me to that because things change all the time, but that's the anticipation right now. And then later this spring, probably May timeframe, will be what's called a record of decision, and that'll allow them to actually start doing contracts for moving the construction portion forward. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Sure. The market, where's it gonna be sited?
Billion here, billion there. Pretty soon we're talking.
Yeah, so it'll actually be over water, which was a big discussion, but given that the original warehouse was there, that we really wanted to preserve that original feel and be unique in the sense that it's an over water public market. So you can kind of see where the question was about where's the marketplace going to be situated. We have view shed agreements with the AC Marriott hotels, so it's not going to move any further this way to block the AC Marriott's view. But you can kind of see diagonally there is right about where it starts. If you go to the launch, which is kind of the in-between space of the new building, you can kind of look straight from there, and that will be the main entrance to the public market. So if there's going to be like a public market sign, that's really what you'd be looking at. And then it'll head, it's about 40,000 total square feet. Yes.
Would you mind just pointing at the screen as to where the previous question was about? Where
Yes, yeah, so the question was, can I point at the screen? So public market, this is the planned public market building, and this really is where it's going to be. The I-5 bridge is right in this area here. And so right now, when we rebuild the dock, it'll actually be this footprint. By the end of this year, you should have a good sense of what that looks like. Yes, by the end of 2026, we'll start putting the actual deck on. You'll get to see kind of what the new dock is going to look like. It will have kind of a bathtub style look to it, and that'll be the footprint of where the market's going to be, because all the utilities are going underneath that. So it won't be a flat dock before the market's built. Does that help? Did I answer your question?
That's great, thank you.
Here and then here.
We took the Port of Vancouver tour last summer, which I highly recommend everyone. And they said that it will probably be 4 years before that public market is open. Is that?
Yes.
And so are there other things that would be of interest to us that will be open? I realize the apartments and things, but will the Zoom terminal, will there be shops and things in there sooner than that?
Yes. So I can't unfortunately say anything specific, but we meet with Lincoln Property Company, which is our developer, and they've noted that in January there'll be some big announcements, both on tenants in the building as well as some of the ground floor retail, restaurants, things like that, they'll be announced. So be good to keep an eye on that. On the Terminal 1 side, which I'll show you at the end here, where you can stay up to speed on, you can sign up to get updates on it as well. And so we'll be releasing information as those things are announced. Here and then here.
Is there any plans for public marina down there for people that want to come in by boat to visit the market?
Great question. So the day use public dock is open, day use for everyone. We don't have any plans to expand the marina. There's not a lot of footprints where it makes a whole lot of sense. If you go too far this way, you start to interfere with the dock that Vancouver built, and the actual main shipping channel is pretty close at this point, and so it's difficult to have recreational craft permitted in that area. You can't really go out into the river to do that at this location. We are planning on maintaining the day use public dock. It used to be completely empty all the time now. Now in the summer it's very popular. It's also popular for people who maybe don't own boats but acquire one and then want to dump one off there for a few months. And so we've been working closely with Vancouver Police Department on the derelict vessels and transient boat enforcement at the site, because we do want to make it available for those who want to stop and go grab lunch or do something like that. Yes, here.
I had heard from someone, I don't remember who it was, that Zumenfor building was the largest building in Washington per square feet.
I'm not sure. I would be surprised if that was the case. Probably by square footage in Clark County, I wouldn't be surprised if it was, or Southwest Washington.
They said in the state
Yeah.
of Washington.
Oh, okay. I haven't heard that yet, but I can certainly look into that. I know this building, from a property tax and a value perspective, is the highest in Clark County. The Springs building. Yes. Sorry, I don't know if I'm not supposed to say that.
There's a lot of timelines here for the bridge and for the development that you're talking about with Terminal 1.
Yeah.
Are there any interim plans that you're aware of to improve the ingress to I-5 South?
So the question was, are there plans
I-5 South
temporarily to
14?
improve I-5 South to get to 14 connections there? I would highly recommend signing up for the I-5 Bridge newsletters when it comes out to the construction site. Their goal is to leave it open, the I-5, the entire construction, so they'll build the first deck of the new one while the existing infrastructure is open. Then they'll start two-way traffic on the first deck, and then they will build the second one, and then close down and then do the deconstruction. So that's kind of their general sequence.
But in the interim,
In the interim, I'm not aware of, other than keeping the existing ones open, what will ultimately happen, which is great for the waterfront, I think. Columbia Way will ultimately extend and get onto SR14 right here. So you'll be able to go right onto SR14, and it'll also be a different, more improved, efficient route into the waterfront from 14 coming this way. I-5 access south is not going to be much improved. I think you may or may not still have what's called the C Street exit. Mill Plain will stay as well too, but they don't know yet for C Street. That was one of the variables in the plan. Yes.
The trash exits and entrances is appalling, and especially the entrances on the bridge to the city, it's not welcome at all. What can be done so the county and the city and the state
great controversial question. I think I have an answer for you, but it may not be one you like very much. So the question was, with all the trash on the off ramps and near I-5, it's not very welcoming. It doesn't look very good. My previous hat, I used to run the Economic Development Council. We were in charge of recruiting new businesses and keeping existing businesses in the area. It was a big concern of ours, and also worked with several philanthropists in the area had the same concerns. The area, most likely the area that you're talking about, is owned by WashDOT. It's the right-of-way for the Washington Department of Transportation. They have some very strict requirements on who can go in and do cleanup and things like that as well too. So we ran into a wall with them in terms of our ability to have unpaid volunteers. We actually had opportunity to have paid, somebody's going to pay for the cleanup to happen on a regular basis, and they weren't able to allow that due to their labor agreements, things they have going on. So it's an ongoing discussion. I know it's a city and Washington Department of Transportation discussion, but WashDOT is the ultimate decision maker in that. So I can certainly follow up with some contact information there for their folks if you want to reach out to them as well. But I share your concerns.
It is truly embarrassing.
To you, athletes that are involved in democracies, this out their territories and become stubborn rather than exercising common sense. So, thank you for your efforts.
Yeah, and I would note they have done some work, just to give them a little bit of credit. They've done some work to try to do landscaping that is not conducive to like homeless encampments, things like that. And they've done some more, put a little bit more in terms of just general cleanup in the area too. So it's more frequent than it was. It was really bad there for a while, but still I think there's a lot of work that can be done there. So, yes.
So you have a projected tolling this year with $7 to $10 billion bridge, and now you're gonna double the cost of the bridge. As we read the newspaper, how does the tolling even work if you have to double the amount to borrow?
Yeah, great question. The question was is tolling as a planned funding component of the Interstate 5 bridge, how is that going to be impacted? And again, I'm not directly speaking for the program, but I am heavily involved as the port, as a partner. I think what you'll likely see is some increased pressure in tolling, but nothing dramatic. And you'll see a phasing approach that would address what we have funding for, and then ultimately kind of building from the water outward as funding becomes available. And that may or may not impact tolling. So I know it's a little bit of a political answer. I know I'm wearing a suit, but trying to be a little more direct. But I wouldn't be overly concerned about tolling. I think the community pressure, there's a limit, a elasticity of how much people are willing to pay on tolling, but it will probably increase a little bit from the original estimates. Here and then here.
Is there any chance anybody starting just noise ordinance for the train whistles, but particularly near the station?
So near the Vancouver Amtrak station, is that? So the question was, is there any efforts to reduce the train whistle noise, particularly those that happen around the Amtrak train station? So I'm not familiar with that. That's another one that I can follow up with you to see what requirements there are. I'm very familiar with the at-grade crossings and some of the requirements there and the grade separation that can help, but I'm not sure if that comes to play in the Amtrak train, if they're required to blow a whistle every time a train leaves or something like that. So certainly can find those answers for you, but I don't have them, sorry. Yes?
Gateway to Vancouver, where is that concept? Where will it fall in the Terminal 1 area?
Gateway to Vancouver, there's Waterfront Gateway that the city is working on. Is that what you're referring to? Okay. So Waterfront Gateway will start up here. So the Vancouver Hilton is just to the north. There's a vacant area here in an older building. They're working on remodeling that as part of the Waterfront Gateway development. And then it kind of sawtooths in the properties that they own. You'll probably notice the affordable housing project to the west is already under construction. And then they're working with a developer to fill in the rest of that area as well. We actually built the launch here with the opportunity to create a pedestrian connection across down to Esther Short Park. So ultimately, we're hoping to continue to coordinate with the city and create a nice pedestrian crossway through there as well too. It's just right up there. And then Kirkland Development is working on a project over here as well too. Good question. Yes?
Do you have any idea if there's number of lots around where we live on this other side. Do you have any idea if you think we're gonna see any construction in any of those lots, or that any activity that's gonna start pretty soon near us?
I think I have to give so are there going to be the lots that are over here that are for sale currently, are they going to be under construction soon? I think I have to give like an investment advisor disclaimer or something here, so I'm not giving investment advice, nor am I trying to predict the future, but I'll give you my thoughts, my just general opinions based on what I've seen down here. So right now, with the interest rates where they are, it's a big challenge for developers, and that's really just the general lending and interest rate market is the biggest barrier that I've seen to new construction of kind of larger scale. That said, there's still quite a bit of pressure and demand here. What we saw in COVID going forward, there's been this inverse demand in office space. A lot of folks going outside of the core of Portland area. That's created a huge demand here. Our price per square foot have gone up. I think we'll see some leveling out there, and if the interest rates continue to kind of slowly notch back down, you'll start to see some of those trigger. But in the time being, there's a lot of hesitation. I know our developer for Lot 2 is taking a close eye on those rates and working with their investment partners to figure out the right time to pull the trigger on those. So there's pressures in both directions right now, but I would be surprised if anything jumped this year in those lots. That said, it's probably going to happen, and you can tell me I don't know what I'm talking about. Yes.
That triangular green space, a park, doesn't belong to Vancouver Parks Department. It belongs to the development. So is there plans to maintain that continually as a triangular park inland?
That would be a question for Columbia Waterfront LLC. We do have contacts there. We can follow up and get that for you. I do know just from studying their original plans that they were going to enhance that park, still leave it as a park space, but we're going to add some enhancements to it, and I'm not entirely sure where that is now. But my understanding is that is a park as long as the development exists, and if they do anything, it'll be to enhance the public enjoyment of that space. Yes, sir.
With all of the ups and downs regarding our country's trade policies and agriculture, how is the port doing with grain shipments, for example?
Great question. There's been a shift in trade policy. It's not a new shift in trade policy, but it's certainly dramatically. We love that trade's actually in the news again, so that's good, I guess, if you're looking for silver lining. Most people don't understand the value of trade generally. So the question was, what's the impact on grain? I would say generally it was a great year for corn, which offset some of the downward trends in wheat. And then the biggest trade impacted ag product that we move is soybean. And so a lot of that is to feedstock. It's actually not for people or products. It's to feed the farm animals in China and other Southeast Asian countries. And so we've seen a lot of volatility there, and we're competing with Brazil, who's making a lot of investments in being able to provide China year-round with that supply. So soybean is probably the hardest hit there, but generally speaking, if you look at our bottom line, it was a pretty good year, kind of stable year for the port. Subaru is down a bit. Some of that's impacted from the tariffs on automobiles. But generally, we just signed another 10-year extension with them. They have faith in the longer-term partnership in trade. But we're right in the center of a lot of those discussions, and certainly for us, it's a big deal. And there's a lot of jobs. There's 40,000 jobs that depend on the trade economy just on the Columbia River here. So, does that answer enough the question?
I appreciate your answer. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
So that little picture is just a little part of the port. Is that true that the port, because there's a big sign down Mill Plain that says Vancouver Port, but behind that sign there's lots of factories and things. How far down does the port go?
Great question. I promise he's not a plant. I just figured I'd get this question. So Terminal 1, the waterfront is 10 acres. The port actually owns 1,600 acres in downtown Vancouver area here. And so this is just to the west, about 4 miles. Actually, it's about 3 miles west of where we are here. You can see this is the rail bridge. So that gives you a sense of where we're starting. We really, in the 1930s, started here with our Great Western Malting and United Grain, moving ag products, and then it kind of slowly worked this way. This is our Terminal 5, and we're actively marketing this. This is 80 acres. So if you see a big port expansion, it's probably going to be here next. We're actively building a soda ash facility here. So soda ash goes in everything from like car batteries to solar batteries to food. It's just a massively used product in a whole bunch of applications. But we're going to be exporting about 3 million metric tons of soda ash out of the Port of Vancouver starting this year. And then to here is another 535 acres that's undeveloped, that's for the future property. And we actually worked with, I had a presentation at Rotary from the Columbia Land Trust today. We used to own another 500 acres. We sold that to Columbia, or gave that to Columbia Land Trust in exchange for being able to ultimately develop out that 500 acres. So we have 5 terminals, we have 13 active shipping berths, and that's in addition to our waterfront project. Great question, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, with the asphalt plant and the soda ash plant, what environmental impact does it all have?
Soda ash, nothing in massive quantities is great, but I'll tell you, soda ash is benign in terms of you could pour it into the water, it's not going to kill the fish. We don't want to do that, but soda ash, that's part of the reason we loved it. It's a very environmentally friendly, non-toxic type product. We don't have an asphalt plant currently at the Port of Vancouver. The asphalt plant that I was with Albina is not a port property, it's over here. They are, I know, we've entertained and talked with asphalt companies, there's a lot of demand for it, but there's nothing pending at the port. They're working on more environmentally friendly ways of doing that, but it's kind of by its nature with some of the crude oil components of it has environmental challenges there too. So I would say the good news is the soda ash is a big win for us. So everything has its downsides one way or another, but soda ash is about as good as it gets from a unicorn perspective of being able to move something in large quantities that doesn't have significant danger. Again, hopefully that doesn't come back to bite me, but soda ash, as far as I know, I would eat it.
Well, how about the rest of the stuff that comes in and out of the port?
Yeah, and some of that so we're not a container port. We do handle project cargo, like for the semiconductor facilities and the data centers. There's some really big stuff that we move components that go to Idaho or to Eastern Washington for those. We actually don't control to a large extent a lot of the project cargo that we move or required by law to move those things. We do control how much we invest in facilities. So, for example, we don't invest, our commission chooses not to invest in a crude oil terminal facility. And we are under very clear guidance to make sure that whatever facilities that we're investing in are moving our climate action plan forward. So, and again, that was great to be able to get a soda ash win, given the constraints we have in some of those other areas where we could easily move that stuff, but we've chosen as a community not to. Here and then here.
How many berths do you actually put in?
That's a great question. So we handle about 300 ocean-going vessels per year, so roughly 1 per day that we get at the Port of Vancouver. And now that comes in waves, and sometimes they're here for 2 days, sometimes they're here for 4 hours, but we get about 300 vessels here. I should know the overall river vessel. It's on my larger port presentation, but I think it's in more of like the 1,200 range for the river itself for ocean-going vessels. And then from here, from the Port of Vancouver, we're 106 nautical miles in. From there here to Lewiston, Idaho, we have a lot of barge traffic as well too. So Tidewater, Floss, Shaver barges all operate quite a few barge movements up the river, up to Idaho as well.
There were
Yes.
a lot of off-road improvements along Port Plain, where you can bike and hike and move out towards Vancouver Lake, and then it comes to a dead end. Did you put all of that in, or did the city put that in, or did the county put it in? Who's been developing all this as we go out towards Van Lake? And is there any more public access going to be in any of this?
Great question. The question is about public access, trail, and bike improvements that have been made going west on Fourth Plain as Fourth Plain and Mill Plain come together. And so, yes, the port is working with the city and with the county on a larger parks plan that would connect from like Washougal all the way up to Ridgefield. We'll see if we get it back, but it's okay if we don't at this point. There we go. And so the port has invested in the areas adjacent to the port property. So right where Mill Plain and Fourth Plain come together, starting around that point, the port has invested in that trail system. We're actually spending $2 million right now, expanding it from where it currently ends to the next phase, which will connect it out to where Frenchman Bar, that turn off to Frenchman Bar goes. So you'll see this year more park infrastructure, and that is paid for by the port, but we also get supported by regional transportation grants and other federal grants that help support and kind of match the amount of money that we're investing as well. So, great question. Thank you. Yes.
When we took the Vancouver tour, we were told that there's a building you have somewhere there that sort of provides some R&R for for some of the crew
Yes.
members that end up stuck on the ship for weeks or months at a time. And that looks for volunteers to help there.
Yeah.
Are there other things that you have volunteers for?
Great question. We're out and about in the community all the time. So the question is, the Seafarer Center is what she's referring to at the port. We lease the Seafarer Center building, which is, let's see if I can find it. There, auto terminal here. You can tell engineers put this together. They're just a bunch of numbers. It doesn't actually tell me where.
Right above B10.
Right here. Yeah. So the Seafarer Center, building 3405, if you're interested. We lease that to them for $1 a year. So it's a nonprofit, and they, as mentioned, there's a lot of Filipino, Malaysian, other seafarers that are for months at a time out in the ocean and don't get to see their family. And this is really, there's a multi-faith chapel. There's a kitchen there where they can cook meals from their home cooked meal and make requests for ingredients, things like that. And really, it's just there to serve them and help them have a little bit of respite. Sometimes they're allowed, depending on what their visa's allowed, to go kick a soccer ball, and that's all they want to do. So they take a van and drive them to a soccer field. They get to play on some grass for a while. So great organization. We do. They have volunteers support there. We just put together a bunch of holiday gift bags for them as well too. Some mugs, hats, things like that. So donations are always welcome to the Seafarer Center. The question is really, are there other opportunities to volunteer with the port? We do a lot of stuff out in the community, but I'd have to ask our external affairs teams if we seek volunteers from the community for anything else besides this. We do have a community fund as well that is open right now that we contribute. It has to be for economic development or tourism, but we support nonprofits through that fund as well. All right.
Okay.
I can take a couple more questions. I just want to show you really quick. There's on the port site, portvanusa.com. You can go to Terminal 1. It has its own landing place now. If there's stuff you want to fact check me, which you might want to do, the history, project timeline, a lot of good new features here. This was just updated last month. It gives you the most current, up-to-date information on the site. Additionally, if you go to community, there's a section for port tours. If I can, and when that opens up this spring, you can contact us. You can sign up to get information about the port. We also send, if you're a resident, you should be able to get that. You can subscribe to get information about when port tours are coming up. So I highly encourage that as well. Sorry, sir, go ahead.
Now, we've used this area to build ships in the past, and figured
There you go.
and World War II. What is there any interest about building ships here again?
This is like the best set of questions I've ever had. So congratulations, you get the ultimate award for best questions. So there is a lot of interest. There's actually Maritime Supremacy Act that was an executive order that has created a lot of interest in the shipbuilding community still in this area. So you have Vigor, you have JT Marine, you have Gunderson, a lot of other big shipbuilding companies that have a lot of history there. Thompson Metal Fab as well. And there's a lot of interest in working together as a river system to see what the opportunity is for us to, if in fact the shipbuilding efforts of the United States ramp up again, that we're prepared to have portions of that. Probably not like the Kaiser shipyards, like in the back, unless it's an emergency situation. I wouldn't see something like that getting built again. But we do have a lot of companies in the area, a lot of metal fab, steel fab companies who are very capable of doing components of those larger vessels. Does that answer your question? Yes, there's a lot of interest in it.
Goes in the river.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say, from, again, wearing my old economic development hat, the amount of the legacy industries and what those have contributed to current economy of Clark County is outstanding. A lot of skill sets still exist there in terms of marine welding and things like that. We have a lot of strength in those areas that we should definitely continue to support. All right.
Real quick,
Yes.
you're saying that walkway between 1 and 2 is supposed to go over the railroad and land on the other side?
Yes, it is designed so that the launch, let me go back to my slides here. The launch at the Zoom Info building here, you can see the little shadowed area here. It's designed to be able to put a pedestrian walkway over the BNSF berm to then go straight down into Esther Shore Park once Waterfront Gateway is complete. None of that is funded yet, so it's all conceptual, and basically all we did was make sure the design standards here were capable from a weight and engineering standpoint of being able to handle that bridge. So that's not going to happen like in the next 5 years, but it's definitely planned in the future. All right, I have business cards here. Hopefully that was somewhat useful for you today, but happy to answer those questions.